Saints Catholic Church in Dallas, Texas welcomes you to All Saints Coffee Chats.
Cool. No, listen. Hi, how's it going?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Welcome to Coffee Chats, episode 74. Every week we're like, wow, but it does keep getting this weird.
Every week we add one number.
Yeah, that is how
we don't
time.
go down.
No.
Huh.
We should do that one.
Maybe we should. We'll get to a point where we
happens?
start counting backwards, and then that'll be the end of Coffee Chats.
There we go.
That's
Good plan.
sad.
Yeah, but now we're so far in that it's going to take a long time
gonna
to
take
go
a
all the way
long-
back.
Long time to do that. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if I'm on board with that plan. Yeah.
Anyway, today we have Paul and Danielle Bianchi as our special guests. This is
Look, it's slanted.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait.
It's okay.
We'll work on that.
You're taller than I am in that picture. Perfect.
But thank you all for joining us. Paul, obviously you didn't have as much of a choice, but thank you, Danielle, in particular for joining us.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we're always excited to have y'all on here, and so we'll start off kind of our usual way with any favorite saints, any particular saints at the moment or in general that have been sticking out to you, or I guess we'll start with you or whoever wants to go first. But
Sure.
yeah, we talk all the time, so we just want to.
Yeah, someone else a turn. I feel like that's asking someone to pick a favorite child, kind of. But
We're not who that is.
So I'll do a little bit of the cop-out answer and name two. I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention Mary on her feast day today. So I've always had a special devotion to Mary and have absolutely felt her guiding presence throughout my life. But aside from Mary, of course, favorite saint, definitely Saint Zelly Martin, which I think most people know her and her husband as being the parents of Saint Therese of Lisieux. But I really appreciate the example that they give of raising a family in the faith, and how they did a beautiful job of raising their 5 daughters in the faith, and obviously we have Saint Therese is kind of a very clear testament to that. But would definitely encourage anybody to read about Louis and Zelly Martin if you're not familiar with them, and because I think they have a lot of letters of theirs that were preserved that really give just good insight into just the day-to-day realities of what it was like with them trying to raise their children to sainthood.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's amazing. I always heard about Saint Therese, and then it's like there's a whole story behind that, and behind every saint there's obviously something. That's really cool to see that.
Yeah, and I think it was a beautiful testament that the church canonized Louis and Zelly together, and they are kind of giving the church a model for what is sainthood, lived in the realities of family life. So.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Paul, any particular saints today?
Yeah, I kind of knew that was the direction Danielle was going to go with this, with Louis and Zelly Martin. Yeah. So I actually am going to go with another couple of saints, Saint Anne and Joachim,
Nice.
who are the parents of Mary, who are also their feast day is our wedding anniversary. So I thought, knowing that she was probably going to go the direction of Louis and Zelly, that I should probably go in the direction of Anne and Joachim,
Nice.
who also raised a pretty good child.
They did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Mary
Turned
turned
out all right.
out pretty good.
Better than the average show.
Yeah. And then it also ties in that she went with Mary. That one I didn't see coming. So, yeah.
Impressive.
So.
That's
She married
amazing.
an average Joe too.
Yeah.
That's, oh my gosh.
Why have we
Yeah, like
not done that before?
She married an average Joe. Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
So speaking of that, any saints that we're here from you?
I'm gonna go ahead and hop on that same train because I'm currently really into this one saint, which I've already mentioned her before, but Saint Gianna is just one of my favorite saints right now, and I'm reading her book, or the book of her letters that she exchanged with her husband Pietro, and they're just beautiful. It goes through their dating phase, which is very short. It was like a 2-3 month dating phase, and then they were engaged and then married, and so it's like a very quick
They just knew.
They just knew. They just knew. But like to go through all those letters and to read them, and to see that that love and romance is something that saints experienced in a relationship, and then to go on and see that they gave their lives so much from their love for their children as well. It was just really beautiful, especially as a young woman who is not married yet, but to be able to see that being lived out in a saint's life. So I've been really just loving Saint Gianna. Highly recommend reading her book to anyone who is interested.
I didn't know she had one.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Her letters.
Yeah. Or whatever the combination was. I think I'm gonna go with next Thursday. We'll probably talk about him again next Thursday. But Blessed Carlo. I don't know how you say his last name.
Bianchis.
Bianchis.
Yeah. Or Cutis.
Celebrating him next Thursday. And honestly, I don't really know a whole lot about his story. I mean, I know about the website that he put together and a few other things, but I haven't really spent a lot of time looking at his life, which I want to. But I saw something about him recently that was he's the first blessed person or saint that you're gonna see in jeans and a hoodie, and just that conversation that holiness is not that far away, because whenever you think of the saints, you think of hundreds of years ago, the kind of society that they were living in. So to see someone who grew up relatively the same way that we did, and it was the jeans and the hoodie thing that I was wait, I can do that too. That's what I wear every day. I'm fully capable of this.
For me, with him, what it was is that somebody was asking the question of, is the Pokemon card collection that he had going to be considered relics? And I was wow, that's my son has Pokemon cards, and I was that's
he had a
so
PlayStation too. So.
Relevant, yeah. He had a PlayStation. He loved playing PlayStation. It's
I
play PlayStation. I was I did that once. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's he's
Find
so
the controllers. I don't know.
relevant to I mean, did the games that he play become? Do they become relics?
Is the internet a relic?
Yeah, right?
Right. So are we all using the internet as a relic now?
Imagine a reliquary for
there
a
needs to be
PlayStation.
some cleaned up things on the
Yeah,
internet.
that's maybe not
for
all.
that to happen, but
Not the whole internet.
So is his website considered a relic?
I don't know if it's a virtual
How does that work?
relic.
Yeah.
We haven't had to
Never
figure
had
this
to
out
deal with
before.
this.
Right.
The layers removed there.
Right.
Of
Because
course,
I mean,
that's right.
and we've talked about this before. The patron saint of the internet is someone who lived 1,500 years ago, and so clearly he will take on that mantle and kind of carry that title over. But I wonder, what does that mean? We've never had to, but that's also a reality that it's this is really cool. We're going to have saints in the church that used iPhones, that have used MacBooks we're doing, that have done Facebook live shows, maybe.
That's what I don't know.
Not this one. But with Danielle and companion. I'm good with that one. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think is so cool about Blessed Carlo, is that it's all of it, the jeans and the hoodie. And we had John Paul II, who used to talk about the next generation of saints is going to be the people in jeans and sneakers. I mean, he said that at One World Youth Day, and it's here it is, it's coming to fruition. So yeah.
So cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Whenever I think about saints of the modern time, I think about what are we going to be holding in our saint pictures? For Blessed Carlo, was he going to be holding a laptop and
Yeah.
I mean, you said there's paintings that have been done where it's got a PlayStation in the background with him and computer monitor and a Pokeball and all this other stuff where it's these are all things that I have in my house right now that it's oh, this is really cool.
Yeah, we have one for our son that we got that it's an artist, which is Almond Rod Toys, that she did it, and it has a Pokeball on the PlayStation, and so we got it for him just so he could be able to see that connection of just this is someone who is on the path to sainthood and who was interested in the same things, and even though he certainly hasn't been proclaimed the patron of the internet yet, I've certainly been sending prayers his way for his intercession, as we try and kind of navigate that reality with raising kids in the church of, we'll take all the help we can get with
Yeah.
to help them, learn how to use all these technologies responsibly. And so, I think that's great to have, him as a model and example in that regard, especially.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it reminds me. So he's not a saint, he's not a blessed, he's not a venerable, but he's a servant of God. He's getting there, I promise. His Father Emil Capon, I think I'm saying that right. He was a Wichita priest who they finally got his. He was a Wichita priest, and he was a chaplain in Korea. I want to say it's Korea, and he was. I think he's officially been declared a martyr fairly recently, so he'll be a saint pretty soon.
Right.
But during a recent exchange, they finally had there was sorry, words. It is an exchange of the bodies of those who had passed away or had been killed in the Korean War. There was something that they did, and they found his bones in particular.
Oh, wow.
And so they had just had his funeral mass in Wichita, and even though he's already a servant of God, then they kind of had a whole welcoming home as a soldier and also as a priest. But in all of that, and seeing some of my friends from Kansas and sharing things on that, it's another example of there's photographs of him. There's people
Right.
alive that knew him. Probably not as many now, but I mean, he
Yeah.
grew up in Wichita.
Yeah.
I mean, not to diss Wichita, but
No, I
it's
mean,
Wichita. I mean,
yeah.
right, yeah.
I mean, right. So often when we think of the saints, we're all like, oh, they all died in Europe, 100,
Right, yeah.
200,
Spain,
500, multiple, yeah. Yeah, so it's cool to see this. Oh, these are, either contemporaries or relatively neighbors.
Right.
I mean, Wichita's 8 hours away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And just his story is so inspiring. You get a chance to look that up. He was, a great priest and a great chaplain, and he was they were in a prisoner of war camp for the last, I don't know how long of his life, but he was very much like Saint Maximilian Kolbe. He was ministering to them up until the very end. It's just a very cool story to hear about again recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, going from there, any particular favorite scripture passages standing out today or always or something along those lines?
Again, like being asked to pick a favorite child.
Yeah.
In terms of all time, I would have to say the Road to Emmaus passage from Luke 24. The one line in there that weren't our hearts burning within us while he was speaking to us on the way has just always stood out to me. I personally have a deep love for scripture study, and I think that particular verse kind of gets at the heart of the ability to meet God in the scriptures, and particularly in praying with the scriptures and just kind of unpacking it, but then connected to the next part of the story where it's and then he was made known to us in the breaking of the bread. I think that's just a beautiful expression of what we experience there in the Mass, and particularly the connection there with the liturgy of the Word, and then the liturgy of the Eucharist. And as beautiful as Scripture is, and how much it is a place for us to be able to encounter God, that we as Catholics, and the Eucharist is the actual fulfillment of that, and the deepest way that we're able to receive Christ. So I love that passage kind of encompasses all of that reality.
Yeah, that's awesome. Paul, any particular?
Yeah, actually, we have a book at home of Catholic family, what is Catholic family household blessings, I guess is what it's called.
Oh yeah, it's a USCCB book.
Yeah.
Household blessings and prayers.
That's what it is. Yeah, I have it sitting on my desk. I can see the side of it. But we were looking for what blessing is used for the pets, knowing that trying to get here on Saturday to get Toby blessed and do Fall Festival was going to be too much of a challenge. There's lots of moving pieces, so the kids and I were looking for the blessing, and then also we do blessings on birthdays. So we had Noah's recently. We were going to be doing mine, but as I was looking through the table of contents, one of the things that I've been struggling a lot with lately, and I think I've said it on here before, maybe it's in the Sunday Scripture things, that I've been going through a period where there's kind of this desolation and darkness and kind of despair in some things, and I think that's led to a lot of feelings of resentment and anger towards a lot of things. Like I get mad really quick lately, and I'm like, this makes me so mad. And it's like I'm driving out of my driveway, and a squirrel runs behind the car, and I'm like, that squirrel made me stop. And so then I hate all squirrels for that entire day. It's stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. But as I'm looking through the table of contents at the book for the Catholic blessings, one of the things that's in there is prayers to help people who are dealing with anger. And I was like, maybe I need to spend some time in this. And one of those prayers comes from Psalm 22, which is the prayer that Jesus is saying on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? And one of the passages that's in that is that's in that psalm is verse 19. But you, O Lord, do not be far away. My help come quickly to my aid. And to me, as I'm looking at that, I'm just like, I need to calm down and remember that the Lord is in charge of things, and there's probably not a really good reason for me to be getting so angry, and I should probably spend more time looking to the Lord and be like, I need you. I need your help in this, and instead of dealing it with myself and wanting all squirrels to die.
Squirrels probably appreciate you.
The squirrels who are God's
creation.
creation. Yeah. So we were, like this happened last week, and I was so mad at squirrels, and we're at Mass on Sunday at St. Joseph's. We're sitting outside because they've got this outdoor Mass, and the entire Mass, a squirrel is in the tree above us eating nuts, dropping them down on our heads. I'm not even kidding. I didn't think about that until just now. It's because I cursed the squirrels, and God was like, take this. So we're sitting at Mass, and they've got these beautiful planters outside at St. Joseph's, and Noah's sitting there, and he keeps going, why? He keeps doing it, and I'm like, what are you doing? Pay attention to the Mass, son. I'm not paying attention to the Mass. You pay attention. I'm watching my kids color. And Noah's like, something keeps hitting me in the head. And sure enough, like right above us in the tree is a squirrel. He's just like eating and dropping them on our heads. He couldn't have possibly actually eaten a single thing because he was dropping all of them on our heads. And I finally looked up and I was like, stop it, squirrel, and right in my eye. I was like, I deserve that. So.
Patron saint of squirrels, one day.
Huh?
Patron saint of squirrels.
I don't know who that would be.
No, you one day.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
You and
maybe the patron saint of
it all
like against squirrels.
Squirrels. With my attention span, that might be it.
Look, your holy card is like you yelling at a tree.
Me yelling at a tree.
There's an acorn falling.
That's gonna be the picture.
Old man yells at squirrel.
Of the old man waving his cane at the kids in his
lawn. Everyone's like, oh, I know that one.
That's
stained glass window somewhere.
Stained glass window. Bunch of squirrels around me, and you just go.
Honestly, I kind of want to make that.
Can somebody who's an artist, if you can put together a stained glass window of me screaming into the air at a tree full of squirrels, I'll pay for that. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll hang it up in here.
Yeah.
Oh man. Sorry,
commission that
still trying to
artist.
picture that.
So
anyway, any particular verses from you guys?
Okay, so speaking of being angry, I think this plays perfectly into it. So this week in Daily Mass, we've been reading the book of the book of Jonah, which I just love the book of Jonah. I think it's kind of funny when you read it and you listen to just how Jonah reacts to God. But one of my favorite parts comes at the end, and this plant has grown over Jonah to give him some shade, and he just loves this plant, and he's like really enjoying it. And then the next day he wakes up and this plant had withered, and so he's so angry. And God comes down and he goes, well, why are you angry about this plant? He goes, it died and it won't give me any more shade, and I'm so angry. I'm angry enough to die. Like, he's being so dramatic about it. And God is like, okay, well, this is how I feel about Nineveh. This is like my concern about Nineveh. This is it, and this is why I want the people to live. Is because I also feel that passionately about them. And so he used like Jonah's anger to help him to recognize like God's own like love for Nineveh. So I just like think that is one, a really funny part of just watching Jonah be very dramatic, but then also like a very beautiful lesson. Like, God didn't really condemn his anger as much as he was just like, let me just redirect you to what is actually true, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Jonah's-
Another holy card of a man yelling at
Yeah.
a tree. Get y'all together on that.
Me and Jonah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm.
I think his life is just a series of events that you're like, what's going on? He'll get stuck in a whale.
What the heck? He
For
literally
multiple days.
He does
For
that.
multiple days, yeah.
For multiple days. That was like the first Bible story that I remember recognizing as a child, because I'm just like, what? Who does that? Like, why would?
Does that happen a lot?
Does that? Yeah,
Should
is
I
this
be
like?
concerned?
Is that
Great-
something I have to
great
worry about when I get
vegetarian.
older as a Catholic?
Like that quicksand, like way more concerned
Oh,
than we
yeah,
ever needed to
absolutely.
be. Yeah.
Quicksand.
Terrified of quicksand. But yeah, honestly, but he's kind of relatable in that way too, in my own series of events. But that's all I had about Jonah. I just think it's some of
Yeah.
his stuff that happens to him is hilarious. And then when something happens in my life that's like not equally ridiculous, I've never gotten stuck in a wheel before. But
I mean-
just put things in perspective. You
Spoiler
know?
alert. Nobody knew that about you.
Fun fact:
Means
when
you're
I was
bad.
5.
Yeah, I would love to.
So the concern was valid.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah.
He was right.
This is why I relate to him. That's the extent of what I have right now.
That's amazing.
What about you, though?
Yeah, I was thinking, we sort of talked about this last week, or I talked about it with our Bible studies, with the junior high folks especially, and it was how Jesus is always correcting adding things very assertively to the teaching that everyone else is throwing at him.
Yeah.
I may have talked about this last week on here, but it was just funny to kind of look back through all those moments. Like last week's gospel was one, but then there's a dozen others where he's like, they're like, well, what do you think about this thing and that we were trying to trap you on? He's like, yes, Moses told you that, but I say this, and they're like, hold on, who are you?
Right. Authority.
Adding things to what Moses said, but it always leaves them like totally confused. Like, well, dang it, we can't. He was right, but we also can't like get mad at him for it.
Challenging.
And so it's just a couple of those moments that I was just looking back through last week in reference to that one. Just like Jesus being clever and also like intelligent,
Yeah.
and just all of those things at once. Always fun times.
There are so many people who get mad at trees in the Bible. Like, I'm just now thinking
Yeah,
of like,
the fig tree.
Oh,
was
that's right.
it-
Jesus
was it-
cursed a tree. Yeah.
like
Fun,
Jesus
yeah.
curses a tree,
Uh-huh.
and the disciples
One
like,
of my favorite
"Dang,
ones.
Jesus, why?" You know, or like the Elijah under the tree, and he's like,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
wasn't it Elijah that's
I
like
think so.
mad under the tree? And
I don't think
Jesus
he's mad
like,
at the tree.
You just
but
need a
he's
snack.
Mad near a tree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
He's
need
like,
a
have a
take a
snack,
nap.
take a nap,
Yeah.
You're fine.
move on.
And it worked.
Man, maybe it's just trees that are the
Maybe
problem.
it's
The
just
Garden
trees.
of Eden.
Yeah.
Tree messed
Oh.
everything up.
There you go.
Maybe
Full
that's
circle.
why. Sorry, moving on. I'm like putting this
I'm just
together
trying- yeah,
now.
like,
I'm like,
all of
okay,
these
at least
things.
I'm in good company.
This is a
Like,
good, this is a good recurring theme to
Yeah.
be part of. Yeah.
I mean, that stained glass window could be a multitude of people. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That could be a whole church. The
Yeah.
saints of the.
the
No,
saints
okay.
of the
That's good. That's.
saints of the
We'll work on
angry
that.
trees.
Yeah.
You'll be
Feel better
all in
now.
company.
Good company. Yeah,
Paul
I'm
and
in
all
good
the
company.
Companions,
saints, but also
including-
good
No, I'm going to be a companion.
Elijah.
We haven't talked about this.
Oh yeah.
Not Elijah will not be my
Yeah, I mean-
companion. I will be
He
Elijah's.
gets step
Yeah.
back.
Let me understand my place in history here.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, having that settled now,
Angry trees.
wanted to have you guys on the show. Obviously, Paul, you're here a lot of the time, but wanted to have you on collectively.
Try to be.
Usually, more than most of us. But want to have you guys on here collectively. Just kind of ask, the questions
Good.
that we wrote down that I read and
Yes.
remembered and was going to ask.
It's live TV.
It is like I can cut this part out later. That's
Yeah,
all right.
there you go.
Actually, no, I can't.
Okay.
But wanted to ask y'all about marriage and family life and some things along those lines. One of the questions that we'd want to start with was, how did y'all meet?
What's your story?
What's your story?
Oh, this is
Tell us a
my
little about
favorite.
yourselves.
Maybe I'll start the story and then
Do you
Paul
wanna go
can,
first?
So
I'll embellish and exaggerate the storytelling.
usual.
That's what I do.
We met when we were both living and working in the Archdiocese of Galveston, Houston. So I was part of a graduate service program through the University of Notre Dame called ECHO. And so I was working at a parish in Galveston in catechetical ministry. And the youth minister that I worked with at that parish, she had worked with Paul in a variety of diocesan youth ministry events at that point, because he was at a parish in Houston at the time, and I had gone with her to a diocesan youth ministry monthly connect event, and she had told me, I want to introduce you to my friend Paul, and so I met him at that event. Do you want to take over from there?
You're doing great.
And I didn't remember this till years later, but it was December 1st actually, and so the theme of that monthly gathering was, they had it set up as an Our Lady of Guadalupe theme, kind of leading up to her feast day. And so, we started in prayer, but like at the center of this gathering, they had like a prayer table set up with a statue there of Our Lady of Guadalupe, as well as like roses kind of decorating it. And then at the end of the meeting, when my coworker Marianne formally introduced us, I'll let you take over.
I mean, like this. Yeah, I mean, you built up to the moment of where, I asked you to marry me.
He grabbed a rose.
Like within 5 minutes of meeting you, right? And when I tell the story, I'm like, so like in cartoons when you're growing up, and like I always go back to like Bugs Bunny in Space Jam when Lola Bunny walks in and like his eyes bulge out of his head, his heart's beating out of his chest. That was what happened. Like, and don't be too embarrassed. We've been married for a while. I mean, she did not say yes then. Just to be clear, I asked her to marry me, but I, in all of my courage of giving her a rose and asking her to marry me, did not ask for her phone number. So this happens, right? So this whole thing happens, and it is kind of funny because it wasn't until many years later that, and you know this, and I've talked about it a lot, and Erica, you probably know, Krista, if you don't know, I have a huge like Our Lady of Guadalupe thing. I love Our Lady of Guadalupe, and like so much of like my faith has grown through the relationship with her, and didn't even realize until like many years later that like this was all around Our Lady of Guadalupe, who was right there, and it's kind of like, I've been here with you all along. Like, hello. Oh,
you're welcome.
Sorry. Yeah. So we meet. I ask her to marry me. She laughs awkwardly, like I'm some sort of psycho. Because that is appropriate.
That is the appropriate reaction.
And then, like, so the way things kind of naturally worked is that there was a younger crowd of youth ministers, and there was a little bit the old guard, right? Like the more experienced youth ministers. So all of the young youth ministers go, I don't even remember where they were going out to eat for lunch after this meeting, and all of the older youth ministers are going to a Bennigan's, right? Yeah, Bennigan's, which doesn't even exist anymore. That face exactly, like, what's a Bennigan's? Yeah. So, and Danielle was going to Bennigan's, so I was like, I'm going to Bennigan's. So we go to Bennigan's, and all of the youth ministers sit together, except for Danielle and I. Like, we got sent to the kids' table appropriately, because we were kids. I mean, comparatively speaking, we were what? How old are you? Wait. I'm realizing now that I would have been at Bennigan's and you guys would have been at the other restaurant.
There we go. I was going to say that earlier. I didn't want to. Yeah.
23, 24. I know. I saw the face. Now I'm the old youth minister. But, so we're sitting there, and I'm sure I ordered the least healthy thing on the item, which Bennigan's was pretty much all unhealthy. Oh yes, I did. It's a fried sandwich. It's like a deep fried sandwich.
That is,
that's covered in powdered sugar and jelly.
Okay, how could you forget that? That's fair.
That is
so we ate. We talked. We had this great lunch. We talked together in the parking lot. We went on our separate ways, and I never asked for her phone number. like a coward. And so I called her boss. It's like, hey, I totally forgot to ask Danielle for her phone number. And she was like, yeah? So she did.
No, she asked my permission first. Thank
Did she? Okay, that's good. Okay, good.
She's like, here you go.
Yeah.
What is
So I called her. We had dinner the next night, Outback Steakhouse. It's always kind of my go-to first date because I worked there and I knew the
You
menu
know
well
things,
enough
yes.
that I could help out if there was like,
There you go.
what's good here? It's like, actually, I know
Good to know
this
now.
one.
Good to help, yeah.
Went and saw a movie after that. Yeah, we just started hanging out a lot. And then, eventually I broke her down. And she agreed to the initial question. About a year and a half later.
Eventually.
Yeah. Just, I had to slowly keep dropping hints the whole time.
Yes, which I think bringing it full circle, that when he did propose for real, or I don't know, maybe it was for real the first time. I don't know. But when I actually
time it works,
when I actually said yes to the proposal,
When you said, when I had a ring and
this
was
is true.
ready.
He proposed at the grotto at Notre Dame. They have a beautiful grotto. It's a replica of the one at Lourdes, and it's my favorite spot in the world. And so that's where he proposed there. And so we have this picture that we took the next day of of course there's a statue there of Mary kind of like inset into the grotto, and so it's a picture of us standing there happy and engaged, and Mary's there in the background. And so to me it's just always kind of a beautiful reminder of kind of just Mary's guidance, and just that she was there from the beginning, and we continue to pray for her intercession for our family.
That's awesome. Wow. So now y'all have been married for how many years?
13.
13? Something along those
13.
lines? Yeah, sorry. Throw that one on the spot.
It is.
Yeah.
So I have it engraved
Check the date
into
on
my
the
ring.
Let's hold on.
Like, I'm not looking at anything. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Was it? I always get confused. I really do. I know that we got married on July 26th, but what day did we get engaged? Was it July 25th or July 27th?
Oh no.
I can't ever remember
I think
which
it
one
was
it
the
was,
20s.
but it was the year.
Didn't line it up.
Like it was almost.
Yeah.
Well, okay. A lot of different
You have to
things.
go to Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
I had visited
It was all the
her before at Notre Dame. We prayed every single day at the grotto the first time I visited her. The next time I go to visit, I have the ring in my pocket every minute of every day that I'm there with her. But she had so many different things going on because they were leading up to like their finals and their graduation and everything. But I knew I was going to ask her to marry me at the grotto. And it was, every time we went, we lit candles. We lit a candle for my intercession, a candle for her intercession, and then we would light one together for both of our intercession. And then when I came back and I had the ring with me, it was always like, hey, can we go pray at the grotto? And she was like, well, I've got to do this. And I'm like, but can we go pray at the grotto? And she's like, I got to do this. And I'm like, can we go pray at the grotto? It's like, it was finally like, and totally understandable that it was like, why do you keep asking me? And I'm like, just go pray at the grotto. And we get over there, and every single candle is lit. And I, like, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna have to kill somebody's prayer. I'm gonna have to blow out one of these candles. And sure enough, like it worked out perfectly that there was one candle like on the bottom row. So I was on my knees anyway.
There you go.
That I had asked her, and we had lit the candle. Like, what are we praying for? Like, what are we going to pray for? There's only one candle, so it can't be, So it's our intercession together. It was like for the rest of our lives together. And I pulled out the ring, and yeah, it was beautiful. And of course, so much of it was like Mary was right there, and she was participating in all that. But I never remember the date because then we had the date set for July 19th. And then we were looking for reception venues. And we went to this beautiful place right off of 75 called City Place. And they were like, all we have is the ground floor or the 7th floor. And so we looked at both of those. And they were like, well, also the top floor is available, but not that week. And I said, no. Like, no, we already have our date set. We can't do that. And Danielle was like, well, we can just look. And the second she stepped off the elevator, I was like, no! I was like texting people at St. Joseph's where I'd worked at the time where we were getting married. And I'm like, we need to look at the 26th as a date. The second we got off the elevator, and sure enough, so that was when we got married. But yeah,
That's
lots
amazing.
of fun stories. So,
Yeah.
yeah, 13 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The question I want to ask is, maybe you can readjust the words here, but I want to say, what's the secret to a marriage that's happy and continuing on for 13 years? I don't know if it's a secret or if it's... yeah.
Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
What's the
Or if it's
answer?
something obvious too, but like, what are some things that y'all have found to be really important and helpful there?
I guess I'll say for me personally, I think I've kind of had always this vision in my and marriage that one of the songs at our wedding was the servant song, which, kind of paints this beautiful picture of, so what does it say, like, we're travelers on the road, pilgrims on the journey, together, helping each other walk the mile, bear the load, and, if you're having a hard time, then, I'll be there with you in that. If you're laughing, joyful, then I'll be with you in that as well. And so that has been, kind of my vision of marriage and from the very beginning of, how do we support one another through all of the ups and downs of family life, and just really be that companion to help each other, on the path to heaven, hopefully.
That's awesome. Like you're about to add something. Anyway, sure.
Well, I mean, honestly, like you have to marry somebody who is willing to make sacrifices and be very patient. I know that I'm not an easy person to live with, but yeah, I mean, you learn how to communicate with each other. You learn that, if there's any kind of disagreements or any kind of arguments or something that might be happening, like you try to deal with those when they happen. You do it. I think in our marriage prep class, and we were talking about this recently, like what was most beneficial and fruitful for me was the proximity thing that Mary and her husband Cecil had talked about, that if you're going to argue, don't argue with each other from across the room where you're yelling at each other. Sit down next to each other, hold each other's hands, talk to each other. And I think that's one of the things that we've both learned over time, is that the proximity helps us. If there's conflict, deal with it right away. Try to take care of it. Don't stay mad at each other. Don't go to bed mad with each other. Things like that. We haven't been perfect. I haven't been perfect. But, it's learning that every day. And it is that understanding of, like, with the servant song, of, like, the sacrificial love that you're willing to do what's best for the other person at all times, and to support them through everything that they might be going through. So,
yeah, I think the self-sacrifice, sure, obviously it starts within the marriage, itself, but then, certainly it's taken to a whole nother level when you have kids. That and
very different.
I remember that I had a professor in college that he was a liturgical theologian, and he often, when talking about the sacrament of marriage, he would say, "Marriage is a death." And at the time I was like horrified.
This sounds like the worst thing ever.
Does your wife know you are saying this? But then he went on to explain about how all sacraments are participation in the Paschal mystery, death and rising, and now actually being within marriage, it's absolutely true. It's these continual opportunities to die to self, and to sacrifice for the good of either your spouse or certainly for your children, and it's through that daily sacrifice that you ultimately then become closer to each other and closer to Christ. So that's something that I think has always stuck with me, in a way that I didn't initially expect. But.
Yeah, I remember talking to my dad actually at one point, and I had just asked a question about he and my mom, and I was like, why is there such a willingness to give up all of these things that I know that you love with XYZ? And he said, because I love your mom more than all of these things, and so I want to give her those things. And for me, that always stuck out in terms of, for her, there's very few times that I think in our marriage that we've ever said no to each other about something that we want, or that is for the good of us individually. Like, if I think something is what is best for me, I don't think there's ever been a time when she said no to that, and vice versa. So it's always, like we talk about all the time, love is willing the good of the other person for the sake of the other person. So you do have to die to yourself sometimes and give things up that you may not even think are things that are important to you or that are sacrifices, but then when you realize that they are, it's like the sacrifice that I'm making is for something that is much greater than whatever it was that I'm sacrificing. And then when you have kids, it's a totally different ball game. It really, I will say, I don't know that you can experience a love as great as parenthood, and also, I don't know how to explain the amount of joy that children bring you, but also the very much understanding of it's a hardship. It's not easy, but it is the greatest thing that I think could ever happen to somebody, is the opportunity to be a parent. There are a lot of sacrifices that go into it, and it's difficult. But we were laughing yesterday. Noah was at Bible study. The girls were in choir, so we had a chance to go down to the chapel. And we're walking out of the chapel, and our business manager, Phil, sees us, and he's like, where is everybody? And we're like, we get 45 minutes a week now. 45 minutes a week where we're alone. And I was like, and thinking about it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the absolute reality. It's we're never not with them, doing something with them or for them, but yeah, it's the greatest joy and also the largest sacrifice.
And I think that sounds familiar to us in this room, but I think it's worth mentioning, the idea that the way you love is sacrifice. That's something that is either said or it's at least a temptation for most people, and what you imagine love is actually going to be. It's something, you're doing what's best for yourself. You're trying to find the happiest situation, and maybe that's the end point. But the idea is there's the content of it is sacrifice. There's no greater love than to lay down your life for your friends. And I think it's really cool to hear that from y'all's perspective, particularly within a family as spouses and parents. I think that's really cool. Yeah. So you have 4 kids. I know this, but I'm just for the people.
For those
I know some of them.
Everybody keeping score at home.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
We should put the Italian one. But not really. But so how have y'all been able to keep faith as a priority in the home? Well, now that there's 6 people and a dog running around, there's choir and there's youth ministry and there's jobs and other jobs, and how is it that you've been able to make these things happen while keeping faith at the center of your house, of your family?
We've given up on the dog.
Okay.
Yeah, completely. He doesn't have a rational soul, so we're never going to try anymore.
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
It's my favorite dog.
He's a great dog.
I would say I think our approach to it has always been not that it's kind of one more thing there in the mix with choir and soccer and all that stuff, but rather it is essentially the foundation of everything else. That it's our hope that our kids are able to see that our relationship with God and our participation in the life of the parish is the foundation of everything else that we do, and that and therefore it's not kind of a question of is this something that we make time for or fit in or continue with, but it just is kind of woven throughout everything that we do. That's our hope, because Paul and I have very different stories in terms of our personal faith journey, but when it comes down to it, when we're at the point where we were ready to enter into marriage and then eventually have kids, I think I can speak for both of us and say that our relationships with God was the most important thing in our lives and continues to be, and so it's just kind of, we see it as a natural extension of that of course that is our ultimate hope, that we can invite our children into that as well. And so I think a lot of it comes down to kind of modeling for them what a lived adult faith looks like. Certainly we try and, engage children, at the level that they're at, in their faith development and relationship with Christ. But I think, kind of my understanding on catechesis specifically when lived within the home is kind of, it's our job to kind of walk with them, in their spiritual journey, with the end goal being that they would have a lived adult faith, once they're at that stage. Because if you think about, like, that's where we spend the majority of our lives, right, in that category of, like, an adult in the church, it's been, 3 years, like, with you in middle school, 4 years in high school, all of that, so, that's kind of the way that I think I've always seen it is, like, how do we set them up, to ultimately then be able to, have this living, ongoing relationship with Christ, as adults. So, practically speaking, we try and fill our home with, examples of Sacred Heart, and certainly Sacred Art. Many of them of the Sacred Heart.
To buy at Sacred Heart.
Yes. Sacred Art bought at Sacred Heart of the Sacred Heart. Which makes it Sacred Art.
Yes.
Just follow that path.
As well as, we have small library or large library of catechetical resource for the kid. Just so it's something that's just always, available, to them, just, natural parts of our lives that, that they have, like, faith-based toys, as well as books. It's just that it's something that really just kind of immersing them, in Catholic culture and staying connected here to the life of the parish, and just having conversations with them about the faith, just having that be just like a natural part of our family culture. Like I mentioned before that, I have a deep love of scripture study, and, Paul certainly does as well. And I think that's always been a big emphasis for us is how do we really teach our children how to read scripture and interpret it, kind of understanding the historical context behind it and ultimately pray with it, because I think, for us that has been such a big part of our own spiritual journeys is having scripture as that way to connect to God, to encounter God, to pray with God. And so, that is one of the, I guess, skills that we hope to kind of set them up with, that is, part of a lifelong relationship with Christ, is to be able to know how to unpack it and pray with scripture. So, I think some of the most kind of pivotal moments that we've had, in connecting with our kids on a faith level has been kind of talking through the Sunday Mass readings together, and they're able to ask questions or, share things of, well, this is what my teacher at school told us about this passage, or, more recently, Noah has been sharing, like, this is what we talked about at Bible study, and, so sharing Andrew's wisdom with our family as well. And so
don't mess up.
No
pressure.
So that for me is kind of, what I think of is, like, the domestic church is us there, very much in the process together of growing in the faith. They teach us so much about the faith, as well.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to say, is, like, we probably did a really, I think we've done a really good job of giving them some foundational pieces. Like, some of the things that you would think of are some of the more common, easy things from me. The probably a little bit more deeper, more complex, more Catholic school upbringing type of prayers they get with Danielle. Like, we did a really good job of doing the rosary with them. And I know the Hail Mary and I know the Our Father, but they had to teach me the Hail Holy Queen. Like, that was not a prayer I was familiar with. That wasn't something that when I went through RCIA we talked a lot about. Gianna comes home, and I think I brought this up either last week or 2 weeks ago. It was last week. We were talking about the Feast of the Guardian Angels, and she's waking up every day and she's reading through this prayer packet. And honestly, yesterday when I was at the school, I was like, I need to go down and talk to her teacher and steal one of those packets so that I can learn these prayers. Because she's got prayers now that she's doing, there's like an after meal blessing. And so she's gone beyond where I'm at with those forms of prayers, because she's like, Dad, I know this one. And she's saying it, and I'm like, I've never heard that before. So it was easy when it was like, I'm doing the Our Father and the Hail Mary and the Glory Be and the before meal blessing. But now she's gotten past where I'm at, and I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, we're in trouble. And, and then she's like, of course you know this. You work for the church. And I'm like, yeah. Well, I was like, I've spent so much time, like, trying to get kids to do spontaneous prayer that I don't even know the traditional ones. I was like, I'm in trouble. But really, I mean, the biggest thing, I think, is modeling the faith to them. Kids are exactly what you think they are. We talk all the time about, like, kids are sponges. Absolutely. And so if you're doing prayer, they're going to do prayer. And so they hold you accountable. Like, today, we're in the car on our way to the school, and I think it was Zally that was like, we forgot to do morning prayer. And I'm like, thank you. We'll do it now. And so we did. And so for them, it's routine, right? It does become routine. That you do morning prayer, we do evening prayer. They do the meal blessing because meals in our house are chaotic anyway, in stages of like who's getting food when and what they're eating, and they're picky sometimes. But they all do the meal blessing on their own, like sometimes as a family, sometimes as soon as they get their plate. And really it's just what you model for them. I mean, the kids love board games. So we found like a game called, Spot It? So you have to identify what two things match on each other's cards. But then we found a Catholic version of it. So they learn different things like epiclesis hands and like
the bishop's mitre.
The bishop's mitre, and they know what a ciborium is, and they know what a chalice is, and they know all these things. Like even the 5-year-old, because of this game. Yeah, and I mean it was like, but it came with instructions for all of us that like we had to look through and they had to learn. Yeah. They like puzzles, so we have puzzles of like saints that we've never even heard of that we had to go back and be like, okay, this is who Saint whoever it was. I think I talked about one of them one time on Coffee Chats, and all of us were like, that is not a real person. And I was like, no, it's on the puzzle. We get them the tiny saints every year right before the beginning of the school year, and we talk about who that saint is and why that's the one that mom and dad picked for them. So really it's finding ways to really meet them where they're at. I mean, we talk about that all the time with young adults and high school kids and junior high kids. It's like the effective way to do ministry is to meet them where they're at. Same thing with raising your kids, is finding ways to meet them where they're at. If it's doing a rosary in the car, if it's listening to the Bishop Barron podcast for this upcoming Sunday reading when you're driving to Mass on Sunday, or shout out to Sunday Scripture with Andrew last few weeks, and Erica, listening to that. It's different things where what resources can you give them when you get them. Noah and I used to trade like Catholic facts for dinosaur facts. He was obsessed with dinosaurs when he was a kid, and so
But he was a kid. Now he's an old man.
Yeah, now that he is an old man. Yeah. So it used to be on our car ride to Little Saints. Him and I, he would name like a dinosaur fact, and then I would name a saint fact, and we would just go back and forth every day that he came to school. This was our car ride. The way there and the way back is just like, and he's a very large sponge. And so everything that he took in, and then it was like, he's reading like books of the saints that were written by like Thomas Aquinas. It's like, what are you doing, dude? You're not that old of a man. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just like you make it, you model it for them, and you make it relevant, and then they start modeling it for you, and you're like, oh boy. I got a lot of catching up to do. Yeah. So
they're growing.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great way to consider just for everybody. Like, how can you? Yeah, everybody's called to preach the gospel, and that's your least favorite quote.
Don't do it.
I know. I'm not going to say it, but everybody is called to. I'm not going to say it. No, but honestly, everybody is called to live the gospel and to teach the gospel through their words and their actions. And the words. But I think that
good save.
Better.
But the modeling of that, I mean, even just for the people you encounter in your life. Obviously, your kids spend so much time with y'all, but even just the one guy you happen to cross walking through the mall or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Malls anymore. Mm-hmm. But the there's still a place there for modeling that.
Sorry.
Yes.
One of the messages that just came through said, "It's time. It's time."
Yes, it is definitely that
Light-
time.
is.
It's a little bit
round.
past that time, actually, so maybe an
Yeah.
even faster lightning round.
A
But
super
Oh
speedy.
my goodness, here we go.
I didn't know there was going to be lighting.
Lightning round.
Always,
Yes. Questions.
always.
so, hey, Danielle, there's going to be...
Heads up.
In
Right,
case-
so what order are we going in? Are you asking the question?
I'll ask questions, yeah.
All right, then we'll just go Andrew,
Okay.
then myself, Danielle, Krista, back to you. We're going to circle.
Yeah.
You got this?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
We've
used
heard
to
some of
playing
these
games.
questions before. They're just a little bit
Okay.
more.
You just have to pick one as fast as you can.
Okay, no pressure.
No pressure.
We need music during this.
We're bad at this.
Look at that.
Like to pressure us.
Just sing that the whole
Yeah,
time.
we need a theme song.
Yeah.
Can we get the Only Murders in the Building theme song playing at all times? I would go with that one. All right,
You've got speakers. Okay,
I'm ready.
Ready.
and go.
Okay, fall or spring?
Fall.
Spring.
Fall.
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 Good.
Okay, easy. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs.
What's the
Got it, it was my turn.
Dogs, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely no hesitation. I'm sorry.
Dogs. Okay, a little bit harder. Milk or orange juice?
Orange juice.
Oh,
Milk.
Milk. Yeah.
almond milk.
Wait a minute.
Fair.
I don't drink either.
Orange
Unless it's almond.
Almond orange juice.
Wait,
No. No, very, very no.
would you rather be able to talk to animals or speak all foreign languages?
Oh,
I'm gonna go with all foreign languages.
All foreign languages.
All foreign languages.
foreign languages.
Talking to animals.
Difficult to say.
I don't need to talk to more people.
I already talked to enough.
Just want to talk to my dog. Yeah.
Would you rather only be able to listen to music from the 30s or only be able to listen to modern country music from today?
Oh, music from the 30s. I mean, that, yeah.
So much pass.
We get like one pass.
I'll go with 30s. Yeah.
Yeah, I think by default.
Yeah, right.
We'll go 30s, yeah.
Yeah, same. Would you rather be Batman or Spider-Man?
Batman.
Batman. There's only one correct answer. This question.
All right, we'll go Batman.
Well, somebody's already Batman, so I'll be Batman.
Yeah, I was
I'll
gonna
be
say I'll
Spider-Man.
I'll take it.
Just to balance it out.
Yeah.
Smart.
We're both wrong. It's an opinion, but it's wrong.
Would you rather never be able to dream again or never be able to sneeze again?
Never be able to sneeze again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go never.
What's wrong with sneezing?
I'll go never dream again.
Like, dreaming can at least be
I was trying to
interesting.
think, I was like, well, what would that... Yeah, we'll,
Got some baggage with that one. So
yeah,
I mean-
we'll say let go of the dreams, I guess. Yeah.
There you go.
I know that.
Never sneeze again.
I think I would rather not dream. I don't know. I like sneezing.
it's a tough one.
It's one
We've done this before. It's a little different though. Would you rather have a head the size of a golf ball, or
That's so much smaller than a baseball.
a loaf of sourdough bread? So like sourdough bread is like much bigger.
That's such a specific thing.
Because you think
Who came
some
up with
loaves
this
of
question?
bread, or a sourdough loaf is typically like pretty hefty. So go.
So I'm just like, what about French bread? Like,
Well, yeah,
Like
that's a
white bread,
different
wheat bread,
shape.
like-
At least sourdough is like meant to
Good.
be like rounded.
There's a lot of places we can get like good sourdough bread. It's just very round.
yeah, it's true. It could be.
But what if
more-
it's like this way?
Yeah, it's like, is the loaf
Round
this way
Yeah.
or
Okay.
this way?
You got
And
it.
also have, like designs carved into it.
Oh, that's true. Okay, I'm gonna go with sourdough bread, especially because of the last comment.
Sourdough bread.
I don't even
A
understand
golf
the
ball
question.
is so small. You want a sourdough head or a golf ball head? You gotta pick one.
I understand the choices. I don't understand why. These are
There's no reason why. You just gotta pick one.
When you wake up
Let's go
tomorrow,
with it.
everything
One will
becomes
happen.
real.
You're fine. Sourdough.
Sourdough.
Sourdough. Would you? You know what? Let's just end with this one. Would you rather
We give up.
have banana peels for hair, or have to eat a banana with every meal for the rest of your life?
Oh.
Eat a banana with every meal.
Banana peel hair.
Eat a banana. Yes.
Eat a banana.
Yeah, I'd probably eat one. Slimy.
So many bananas a day. Gross.
I mean, it's only like 3 if you eat 3 meals a day.
What about like snacking all day? That's my problem.
But I mean, if you do banana hair, you have banana hair all the time.
I have sourdough head.
Well, okay.
So
in that
I
case,
mean-
Banana bread.
Yeah, I'll make sour banana bread out of peels. This is awful.
Well, we're done. So
well, now that that's out of the way, thank you all so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Please join us again next week for episode 75.
75.
Yeah, I know.
Feels
We'll have to do
so
like
close to 3/4 of a century.
I know. What's like the anniversary thing for 75 years? Just like
The what is it? The
I
like
don't know.
diamond,
diamond.
With
I thought that
We'll
was-
have to-
you have to look it up.
silver,
We didn't do
gold,
this for any of the rest of them, but
platinum.
platinum.
I'm going
Yeah,
platinum.
sure. We'll
Join us for our platinum episode.
Yeah. And then-
Where we'll all be dressed in platinum.
yeah,
I don't even know what
can't
color
afford
that
that.
is.
Amazing.
Thank you all for joining us.
Well,
on the
you're
radio.
wearing tinfoil.
Appreciate it. There we go. Tinfoil. That's the tinfoil anniversary.
That's the first anniversary.
Is it really? I don't think so.
Paper?
Yeah,
Isn't it?
paper.
Paper.
I've heard
Maybe
that
first
one.
one's paper, second one's tinfoil.
Good.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Pray for us. We're praying for you. Happy.